Hello and welcome to another episode of UpGrade with Maria Kay, the podcast where your success, freedom and happiness get a weekly boost. And a big high five to you again for making the effort, clearing the space in your diary to listen in for the next 30 or so minutes, whether you're returning or whether it's your very first time. I see you, I feel you, and I absolutely honor your upgrade journey. I'm Maria Kay, and I help people all over the world convert their dreams into reality, so that every single day they get to wake up to a life that in the past was simply an idea, that in the past was an absolute abstract dream. If you would like the same for you, and you would like to begin to wake up every single day eager to get stuck into your highest vision life, then you are in the exact right place. If you haven't already done so, do go over to the Facebook group, UpGrade with Maria Kay, and join us. There you can ask questions, you can share your story, you can get even more support and upliftment from me, and perhaps you have any suggestions for future podcast topics. So just a quick recap as to how these podcasts go and how I intend for them to assist and uplift you in your upgrade journey and in your life in general. So each week I bring you ideas, topics, invitations, sometimes controversial, sometimes I ruffle your feathers a little bit more than others. I bring you special guests and experts. I bring you stories of my own radical life change. And I bring you a space where you can begin to think differently. You see, an upgrade cannot take shape unless what you're hearing, what you're experiencing, perhaps in these podcasts or in any other personal or spiritual development platform that you may be a part of, it's all very well and good to hear what is being given to you. But what I intend for you is that you can have the content filter into your daily life, your thoughts, your visions, your actions, so that your upgrade, your dream life can begin to take shape. So I aim to give you practical tools, stories that you can draw on and take note for future reference, so that when it perhaps comes around for you in your life, or perhaps you're experiencing it now, you can say, wow, this is what Maria was talking about. I can apply this here, I can shift this over here, I can use this tool, this idea, this way of thinking, this new way of thinking. So please understand that you may not get everything in one podcast. You may not get that big aha in that one instant. My intention is that we go on a journey together, which means I show up on a weekly basis, but it also means that you show up on a weekly basis. And I say this from the most loving place possible. And if you're not getting what you need in today's episode, I am certain that in either previous episodes or in episodes to come, you will be receiving exactly what you need. So stick around, be patient, and above all, keep going on your upgrade journey. Keep going and don't give up. So last week's topic was absolutely juicy. It ruffled a lot of feathers, but as I said previously, sometimes that's what I'm here to do. Last week's topic really got us thinking. It got us to stop, stand still, and pay absolute laser focus attention to an area that perhaps we've overlooked in the past, and that is fear of effing up. So we've got all the resources, we've got all the ideas, we've got all the opportunities right at our fingertips, but right in that moment when we're required to take that leap, when we are required to take that action that perhaps is slightly uncomfortable or very uncomfortable, we stop, we turn our backs on what we know to be true and the direction that we ought to be going and that our inner being is leading us towards. We turn our backs and we go in the opposite direction, or we stay stuck, which is one and the same. So that was last week's topic. This week's topic is a follow-up, and it's quite connected to a fear of messing up, right? Fear of messing up, keeping us stuck. So as I mentioned, it's very connected. So this week's topic is drop the control freak. Drop the control freak. So let's break down this title a little bit as we start to dig deep into this week's topic. So right at the end of last week's podcast, I talked about the mind's need to have all of the information to hand. Our ego mind's need to have all of the information right in front of us. Now, as you may have already experienced in your life, that isn't always possible, viable, or tangible. Very often, our inner guidance system is really good at guiding us from point to point to point. But what our inner guidance system isn't designed to do is give us a 12-month plan of exactly how life is going to pan out, or how business will unfold, or where to go for our next client or meetings or job or relationship. Doesn't work that way. And quite often, because of this phenomena, that is what keeps us stuck. Because we don't have all the details, right? Our mind sets about creating a ton of radical, far out, untrue stories that could possibly happen, that could go wrong, that could have us effing up, which then keeps us stuck. Because let's be really truthful, nobody wants to mess up. None of us want to make mistakes. None of us want to actively walk into drama and chaos. So we stop and we stay exactly where we are. So have a think about whereabouts in your current situation you may be stalling, moving towards your soul truth because you are afraid you will mess up. Now, it's very easy to say, drop the fear, don't be afraid, keep moving forward despite the fear. Feel the fear and do it anyway. That's the mantra that we want to bring in. That's the energy that we want to be working within. Not always easy or doable though. So this week's topic is going to tie right in and help you along with last week's topic. Drop the fear of messing up, but also in order to do that, drop the control. Now again, not an easy one. Surrender comes to mind. The word surrender. Again, not easy at all. Now, often we try to force the details in place. We try to appease our mind's need to know what's happening next by working so hard at creating almost like a false plan. Now, it's not false on the surface. You can see you're putting dates in the diary, you're creating links with people, you perhaps are booking flights, booking tickets, creating a foreseeable plan. But it's important to pay attention where that action is stemming, where it is coming from. And the root of those actions, trying to create a false plan, always stems from fear, which we can then connect back to last week's topic, fear of messing up, fear of things going completely wrong. Now, there's a very big difference between forcing the details versus allowing the details. Forcing the details versus allowing the details. The energy is different, the premise behind each one is different, and the results in turn will be extremely different. In fact, worlds apart. Start to notice in your daily life, start to become aware of how and when you are operating from each one of those spaces, energy spaces individually. Notice how it feels in your body. And I'll give you an example, a very simple example, an everyday example. So it's coming up to the weekend and you know that you have a Saturday night free. Now, you don't normally like to have Saturday nights free. You like to be out, catching up with friends, having always something to do, whether it's partying or chilling with your girlfriends or your guy friends. You always like to have something planned on a Saturday night. Otherwise, you feel lonely, worthless, like, you barely know mates. So forcing the details versus allowing the details, reminding you there of this energy, right? So forcing the details is sending 1,000,001 messages to 1,000,001 different people who actually you start to realize people are really busy. For some reason, it's really busy that night. And you start to feel as though it's an effort as you try and scramble to make something happen for your Saturday night. Versus, so that's the work, that's the efforting, versus allowing, where you plan to be okay with whatever happens, whether you end up chilling out on your own at home, whether you end up just being at home with the family, taking a hot bubble bath, maybe catching up with your books, whatever it might be. And then, because the energy space is so open, what the message you've given to the universe in the allowing energy is, I'm okay either way, but if you want to send me something absolutely miraculous, then the space is there. There's a huge opening on Saturday night because I am allowing things to flow rather than forcing things in place that actually do not fit. What do they say? That last minute plans, last minute ideas always happen to be the most fun, the most fulfilling. So a very simple everyday example there. So forcing versus allowing. One comes from a place of fear, another comes from a place of trust. Trust. And this is an energy, this is a mindset that is really powerful and useful for us to begin to adopt as we move forward on our upgrade journey. Rather than manipulating or forcing a situation, if the immediate answer isn't available, if you've taken step number one and then you can't see truly, let's be really clear here, you truly cannot intuit step number two, then I highly recommend that you do nothing. Now, I don't recommend that you do nothing for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but in that instant, in that moment, drop down away from the mind, drop down into the heart, and just be okay with not having an answer. Be okay with emptiness. Be okay with the gaps. Be okay with not being in control, right? When we try and control every single moment of our day, we do not leave any time or space or energy for the real miracles and magic to enter into our life. It's like having a big room in your house that has so much potential. It's got beautiful light, it has air because of a huge amount of windows, it's a beautifully decorated, so on and so forth. Yet, because we haven't quite decided what the room is going to be, we cram it full and use it as storage, right? So are you using up your days, your minutes, your hours, your months as simply storage for the clutter? Once we drop the control or drop the attempts to control every element of our life, and we learn as much as possible. Now learning takes practice. So first of all, we need to practice being present in the moment, because all of our power is in this moment. And you may have heard that term battered around quite regularly. It's quite an in-trend term. And that's okay, because it's absolutely true. But do we really understand what it means, being present in this moment and having all of our power in this moment? What does it really mean? Well, first of all, it means that from where we are in this moment is the perfect place for us to make the decision, take the action, have the conversation. Right? Where we are right now is exactly perfect. And really assimilating that and harnessing that, understanding that this is the information I am presented with. This is the emotional state I am in. This is what I have available to me. Therefore, I can only be present. I can only operate from right now. If I try and operate from next week, from what could possibly be or not be, then immediately I'm weakening my energy. Immediately I am watering down my truth, because next week isn't who I am today, or last week isn't who I am today, or last year or next year. So dropping the need for control and snapping ourselves right back and grounding ourselves in this moment allows us a bigger opportunity to click in with the current energies of the now, which means that we are in tune with the universe. We are locked into the current energies. And right there, is your opportunity to co-create with the universe at your very highest capacity. Because when we try and control the elements and manipulate the elements of what's to come, we are operating from our limited mind. Now really, do try and absorb this. Your mind is limited. It sees things at face value, right? Which, if you've been on a spiritual journey for a while, you may have heard, you may be familiar with the concept that we only see a tiny percentage of the truth. And in very simple terms, everything is possible. Absolutely everything. Our mind only sees what is now. And what is now has no resemblance to everything is possible. Making sense? So, attempting to control or over control not only snaps us out of our now moment, but it also interferes with the power that when you partner up with the universe can ensue. When you are living in the past or in the future, and that's what control is all about, right? Trying to control and manipulate what can happen later, what can happen next week. I used to be queen of this, literally controlling how the house was, how the menus were in the kitchen, how my work was going, the children, even down to the children's outfits, they used to be matching, controlling everything, the timing of everything. And that really was so that I wouldn't mess up, so that I would maintain this perfect persona, which was false. And what did I end up doing? I ended up cutting myself off from the goodness that flows through us if we allow. It's our very, very divine birthright. But by trying to control everything based on our ego mind's need to have all of our ducks in a row and have all the information to hand, by trying to control all of that, we cut ourselves off from anything that is outside of our mind. And as I've said already, our mind is limited and it limits us. So how do we achieve that? You might be asking, well, Maria, it's easy to conceptualize it, but I need some tips. How do I apply that to my life? How do I begin to start to live it so that I can experience it firsthand and experience moving further and further away from control and moving closer and closer to living in my flow, co-creating with the universe as a surrendered, trusting being? How do I achieve that? So the very first step, and a very simple one, and I know that you can begin to implement this today, I'm pretty certain of that, and that is focus on one step at a time. One step at a time. Remember, our power is in now. So when we try to race ahead and focusing on today's step, we get caught up in next week's step, for example, which means that we are splitting our energy, splitting our focus. And if you've ever tried to multitask, there's a whole host of arguments for and against multitasking. But in this instance, dropping the need to multitask is really, really needed. So focusing on one step at a time. But how do I know what that step is, Maria? Right? So the second tip is focus on the step at hand. Now, how do we know what that is? Now, last week I talked a lot about trusting your intuition, about how we all have a very competent inner guidance system. You have one, I have one, everyone on this planet has an inner guidance system. Now, I'm not going to focus too much on that today. There's a whole other podcast all about it. But knowing that fact, that constantly, if we are slow, if we are present enough and slowed down enough in our life, that the messages that we're receiving from our inner guidance system are constant. And they come in the form of interests, serendipities, synchronicities, dislikes even, heart's desires, passions and inspirations, just to name a few. So once we can tune in to that inner guidance, the next step that you are going to be guided to focus on will be constantly fed to you. And it's your job to pay attention and it's your job to trust. Now, that doesn't mean, as I've already mentioned, that your inner guidance system will give you 12 months worth of guidance. No, doesn't work like that. Okay? And anytime you find yourself racing ahead, then know that it's not your inner guidance system, it's your mind that's leading the way, and you want to quickly snap yourself back. Now, this is very different to creating a bigger vision, to creating goals. It's very, very different, okay? So do not misconstrue this that I'm telling you that you shouldn't dream big and you shouldn't have a 12-year plan and a 12-month plan, and you shouldn't have goals that you set yourself. Well, that's a completely different lecture, a completely different topic. Today, we're talking very specifically about dropping the need to control. Okay? So focus on one step at a time, follow your inner guidance system, and focus on the step at hand. Okay, right in front of you, and dropping the need to control what happens next. So the step at hand may be, or the guidance that you've just recently had may be, move to a new country. Okay, move to a new country, and it's very clear guidance for you, although it makes no logical sense whatsoever, but it's so strong in your heart, you know you need to follow this guidance. It's a little bit like what happened to me a couple of years ago when I moved to India. Now, the step after that, which all of the people around you will probably be asking, how long will you be there for? Will you live there full time? What will you do? Will the children go to school? All these unanswered questions that are impossible to have the answers to in the same moment as the original step. It's pretty impossible. They may not be far off, but you don't have them now. Okay, so this is where the next step, number 3, comes in. Trust in something bigger than you. Trust in something bigger than you. Rather than staying stuck because you don't have all the missing answers, and it may seem impossible to pull something like that off because you don't have all the answers, and you'll fall flat on your face and completely mess things up, because obviously any responsible person needs to have things mapped out, right? Isn't that what they taught us? Pretty sure you were taught that way too. So trusting in something bigger than you, whatever that may be, the universe, God, the angels, the divine energy, source energy, really and truly, that's something for you to go and explore and figure out what feels good for you, but just trusting that you're not alone on this journey. Right. First and foremost, you have me. Right. So if you need to contact me for any support, please do via the Facebook group, Upgrade with Maria Kay. But also knowing that you are taken care of by something very much bigger than you in your mind. Okay. Then the last one for today is trust yourself. Very often we stay so stuck because we have a lack of trust for ourselves. We may have made mistakes in the past, mistakes, quote unquote, I don't believe in mistakes. We may have taken wrong turns in the past. We may have taken the long route like I've done. And I always say I took the long route so you can take the shortcut, right? But now is the time for you to begin to trust yourself and your inner guidance system. Because your inner guidance system has your back. It has your best interest at heart. It is rooting for you more than anyone in the world that you know. Yet so very often we turn our backs on our inner guidance system because we're taught from a young age not to trust ourselves. We're taught that the people around us are wiser than us, more intelligent than us. The experts around us know better than us. But in order to create the reality that you deem to be outstanding and upgraded, you must begin to trust yourself. You must begin to hear the messages that you are being given on a daily basis. And that may mean that you don't have things mapped out in a 12-month or 12-year plan. It may mean that you are possibly living, and some people may label it this way, as a wishy-washy, flaky, hippie, new age kind of go with the flow person. You know what? If that is where you are being led, if that is what's presenting for you, hasn't done me any harm, right? Learn to trust that. Now we're coming to the end of today's podcast, but if you would like any more guidance from me about this topic or any other topic, please do go over to the Facebook group, Upgrade with Maria Kay, and find me a message or a private message. Let me know what you need. As I've said before, your upgrade journey is my passion, because I believe that you are here on this planet to live an outstanding life and you deserve it. Until next time.